Okay, we are going to start with the Indian Contract Act 1872. We will go topic wise also and we will go section wise also. Okay, so section 1 tells about the short title of the act, that is the Indian Contract Act 1872. It will apply to whole of India. It will come into force, or it has come into force from 1st September 1872. Okay, now this is section 1. Now section 2 is there, which is of definition, that is interpretation clause. In this we have A to H definitions of different terms, that is proposal and contract and all. Okay, now we will start with the definition, but here we are going to just go through the definition, because offer we are going to go topic wise, in which we are going to see in detail the definition of offer. Contract also in the same manner. Okay, so we'll just go through what definitions are there. Section 2A states that when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or abstain from doing something with a view to obtaining the assent of that other to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. Section 2A defines the term proposal, that is an offer, that when one person gives or tells to other person that he is going to do something or not going to do something with an objective that the other person will say yes or no. That is called as a proposal. That is being defined in section 2A. Okay. Now B states that when the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent, the proposal is said to be accepted. A proposal, when accepted, it becomes a promise. This is the definition of acceptance. Means when the proposer or the promisor gives an offer to the other person tells or signifies his assent, that is, he gives his consent, he gives his acceptance, then the promise comes into existence. Offer made, it is being accepted. A proposal, when accepted, becomes a promise. That is being mentioned in section 2B. Okay, now 2C. The person making the proposal is called the promisor, and the person accepting the proposal is called the promisee. Okay, now D. D is the definition of consideration. Consideration means quid pro quo. When at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person does or abstain from doing something, or does or abstain from doing, or promises to do or abstain from doing something, such act or abstinence or promise is called consideration for the promise. The topic of consideration we are going to see in another lecture. Okay, now here what is consideration? Consideration may be past, may be present, may be future. Consideration means one person has agreed to do something or not to do something for the other, and for that he is going to get something in return. That is called as consideration. It should move from the promisor, but it can move from promisee or any other person. Okay, we will see this in another lecture deeply. Okay, now section 2F, promises which form consideration or part of consideration for each other, they are called as reciprocal promises. Means when I promise to you something and you promise to me something, where consideration is there for both the persons, that is called as reciprocal promises. Okay, now G, an agreement not enforceable by law is said to be void, and if it is void, then there is no use of that agreement, because you can't go in the court, you can't enforce it. An agreement not enforceable by law is void. Now H, section 2H is an important definition which states about contract, and today we are going to see that. Okay, an agreement enforceable by law is a contract. An agreement which is enforceable by law is a contract only. So that which is not enforceable in law is not a contract. Means what is enforceability? Means the person can sue, the other person can file a case. Now what is a valid contract? valid contract, for that valid contract we should have a legal offer, a legal acceptance, legal object, legal consideration, competent two parties, free consent, all the legal requirements. When they are fulfilled, it becomes a contract. And if it is a contract, then only it is enforceable by law. Okay, we'll see this. First of all, what is the object of contract law? The object of contract law is to tell you that what are the essentials of contract, in which circumstances promises made by the parties create a legal bindingness, that is a vernaculum juris between the two parties. If it is a contract, then there is a vernaculum juris between the two parties. The two parties are bound together. If they are bound together, one of the person makes a breach, the other person can go to the court. Okay. Now William Anson has also stated that law of contract is intended to ensure that what a man has been led to expect shall come to pass. Means if you promise me something, then I can imagine that yes, he has promised me, therefore he is going to fulfill it. And if you have promised, you have to fulfill it. Okay. In the words of Anson are what? A law of contract is intended to ensure that what a man has been led to expect shall come to pass, and that what has been promised to him shall be performed. So whatever you promise me, it should be performed. Similar type of definition or explanation is been given by Pollock also and Salmond also. What Pollock says, every agreement and promise which is enforceable at law is a contract. So it is just an explanation of section 2H. A contract as an agreement enforceable by law. Pollock also says every agreement and promise which is enforceable at law is a contract. It means you can bring a formula like an agreement plus enforceability at law is equal to contract. Okay. Now what Salmond is telling? An agreement creating and defining obligation between the parties. When two parties are there, because of that contract, what happens? Certain rights, certain obligations are being created. Both parties will have certain rights and certain duties. That is called as a contract. Now when we say there will be certain people, certain parties, some party will have rights, some party will have obligations, both will have some rights and obligation. Here we are using the word obligation, which is of very much jurisprudential importance, isn't it? Obligation means what? A bond again between the two parties. Now these obligations can be divided into like three. One is social obligation, the other is domestic obligation, and the third is legal obligation. For being a contract, there must be a legal obligation. If there is a legal obligation, then only it is enforceable at law. Domestic obligation or social obligations, they are just obligations. For that you can't approach the court. They are not enforceable at law. Therefore social obligation and domestic obligation are just agreements. Therefore it is clearly stated all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contract, because for these agreements you can't approach the court. The agreements for which you can approach the court, you can enforce it by law, that is a contract. Therefore, the agreements which you can't enforce, those are just agreements. And therefore, they are not enforceable in law. Okay. And for that, we are having social obligation and domestic obligation. Social obligations are obligations which we make to people, which we promise to the people, not with an intention to fulfill it. Like we say yes, but that yes is not having the intention to fulfill that. We are having some other object for which we have accepted whatever the other person says. It means here we are entering into an agreement. We are making a promise just by the way. Just by the way means what? We are not having that intention to fulfill it. Okay. So social obligations are not enforceable at law unless they are having all the requirements of law. Domestic obligation, again the obligations which are entered into or promised to us by our parents, or domestic relationship, husband, wife and all. And if there is no legal relationship, no legal obligation there, no legal intention to fulfill it, then they are just domestic obligation. You can't approach the court. Your father has agreed to increase your pocket money. He was very happy at that time, so he promised you. But after that, he is not giving the increase. He is not giving the increment. You can't file a case against him because it is just a domestic obligation. So for domestic obligation and social obligation, we can't approach the court. It is only the legal obligation for which we can approach the court. And legal obligation comes into existence only when all the requirements of contract are fulfilled. If it is a contract, legal obligation is a contract because it is fulfilling all the requirements of the Indian Contract Act. Therefore, it is an agreement plus enforceability at law. Okay? Bye bye. See you in the next video.